everyone, welcome to our channel. Rebecca's doing the crew. Today we have a DIY using mainly items from Dollar Tree. So let's go over our supplies. We'll need a 10 by 8 by 6 box from Dollar Tree and an 8 by 10 canvas board. We're also going to use a macrame cord. They sell them in these 4 colorful strands, or you can get them in white and black. I picked mine up from Hobby Lobby on sale for $6.99. We'll also need a carpet adhesive tile from Dollar Tree and some faux leather or a faux leather bag. And we'll need some fabric. Any fabric will do. You can use bandanas, the fabric squares, the Sherpa, really anything as long as it's big enough to fit around the box. Then we'll need some of these clamps. We'll need some scissors and a screwdriver, hot glue, a ruler, and a pencil, and the brads. We're going to use a few of these for the box. Also some rivets. We're going to use these from Hobby Lobby. They were 99 cents. For 100 count, and from Dollar General we picked up this tin plaque for $1. So let's get crafty. The first thing we're going to do for our first project is start getting our box ready. We are making a basket. So we want this basket to be functional, so we're really going to make sure we work on the bottom of the box to make sure that it is secure and able to carry things or hold things. So we're first gluing those flaps down inside the box. That's not going to be the only thing we do to secure the bottom. There's going to be more, but this is the first step. Once we get the bottom of the box all glued down and in place, we'll start working on the sides of the box at the top. Now those top flaps, we can cut them off if you want to. I didn't really think it was necessary. I like the thickness of them, and so I chose to just fold mine inside. So I add some hot glue, and then I fold those flaps down, securing them with these clamps so that they don't pop up while the glue dries. And I do the first 2 sides straight across from each other. Wait till that glue dries. I only had 4 of the larger clamps. And then I did the other 2 sides. I do them exactly the same way. And this will hold them until the glue dries. And now we'll start measuring our box. We want 3 inches on the outside. Plus it's about 6 inches on the inside. It's a little bit taller than 6 inches. So I ended up marking 3 inches on the outside, and this is going to be the line where our material sits on the outside of the box, starting our lining. And technically what you're going to do if you have this box with those 3 inches and about 6 inches inside, you'll want to cut your material to about 10 inches wide. So now the bottom of the box, you can see we're making sure we're focusing on that and securing it with these brads. So I just take some hot glue, I glue down the end to make sure that it's in there, not going anywhere, and just take a razor blade or any kind of tool you have where you can make a small hole through the layers of the bottom of the box, and that's where you'll push your brads through and then open up the prongs on the inside to help hold the bottom of that box together. And again, you can add some hot glue to the head to make sure that it's going to stay nice and secure. So once we've got the bottom of the box mostly done, we're going to start adding the material. So as you can see, we've got that line we drew at 3 inches. We're going to first put some glue right on that corner of the box. We want to make sure we really pay attention to the corners. That's going to help make sure that there are no wrinkles and the material lays nice and straight. So I pull it nice and straight following that line. I just add a bead of glue right there, and then I glue the material down. Now the material obviously is porous, so you might get some glue that pops through there, so you will want like a craft stick or something to help you push the material down so you're not burning yourself. But when I get to the corner, I always add a bead of glue right to the edge because I want to make sure that I'm able to pull the material nice and tight with no wrinkles. And how neat you do it on the outside of the box really helps make the inside of the box, if that makes sense. So you really want that material nice and neat and straight as you can get it on the outside, and that's going to help the inside look that much better when we do the lining. So again, we've got the next corner and then that bottom edge. And I always cut my material a little bit longer than necessary. It's 36 inches for the outside of the box. So I cut my material to about 40 inches. So it's 40 inches long and 10 inches wide. And that's if you're using this box from the Dollar Tree. And they're over by office supplies where they sell all those mailer envelopes, that's where you can find this box. So here's the overlap of the material. So I just glue that to the material right underneath of it that's already been glued down. Again, I pull it nice and straight, as tight as I can get it to make sure there's no wrinkles. And then all that additional material that we cut, the extra like 7 inches, we're going to tuck that down inside the box. So now we'll start gluing down the corners. So I do glue on each corner, each side of the corner. And then I tuck the material down inside the box. And I take that craft stick and I really force that material down into the corner, making sure the sides of the box are nice and smooth. You might get a wrinkle here or there. That's normal, but it should go in for the most part pretty smooth, especially once you get that first corner down and a nice edge on the outside of the box. That really helps to get it nice and smooth. And you can see how easily it's going in. It's going to wrinkle, like I said, a little bit in the corner, but just make sure you push down with your craft stick, really get into the corner, and it'll help pull it nice and taut. So this is the last edge. Again, we've got the overlap on this side. So we'll just put a little bit of glue at the bottom to help hold the first layer down, and then we'll glue that second layer of material right on top. As you can see, when I finish this one, I've got a little bit of a wrinkle in the corner, so I just add a little bit more glue and then push the material down flat. And it straightens up pretty nice. So this is the lining of the basket. And now we'll work on the base. So we have that 8x10 canvas board, and we'll need some more fabric to cover. So I cut about 2 additional inches on each side of the canvas board, and then we glue this down just like we're wrapping a present. So we glue the first side down, we rotate it. When you glue this side down, make sure you really pull on the material and have it nice and tight so there's no wrinkles, and then smooth the fabric down. And now we'll work on the corner. So just like you would for a present where you kind of fold the corner in like a triangle, we'll add a little bit of glue to help keep it down. And it's real important that you add those extra 2 inches on either side of the canvas board, because you want this material to really be glued down, have a lot of space for it to grab onto that canvas board. This is going to become the bottom of our basket. And when we push it into the basket, it's going to rub on the sides a little bit as we're pushing it down into the basket. And if it's not secure and really on there on the back with a little bit of extra leeway with that extra material, it's going to pull off and then it's going to mess up the whole bottom of your basket. So really make sure that you have that extra material on the back to hold all of this down, and then when we put it in the basket, it'll stay nice and tight. And this just reinforces the bottom of our basket even more. Okay, so here's what it looks like with the bottom done. And now we can put this in our basket. So the basket, of course, is 8x10, or the box. So now that we folded those flaps in, it's a little tight at the top. Just pull the side out and you'll get it. And then just push down. I use 2 hands, push both sides down at the same time, trying to get it to go down evenly. And then it's nice and tight. You see how it pulls the material nice and tight? So you have a really nice lining on the inside of your basket. Now the carpet tile, that's for the base of the basket. It does have adhesive on it already, but we're going to add some extra hot glue because there are a few spots where the glue was kind of sparse and I didn't want it to pop up off of the basket. So I went ahead and added some extra hot glue, and then we'll just center this on the bottom of the box as best we can. And now we want to fold up the flaps on each side of the basket to wrap around the bottom. This first side's a little bit more difficult because you've got the other side still flat and it makes it a little bit difficult to get it on. But once you've got this side done, it's really easy to get the rest of the carpet tile onto the box. You can see I cut 2 notches so I can fold the carpet tile around the edges there for a nice clean edge. And then we'll do the same for this side. Now this is the side it's a little bit easier because it's now laying flat on the table. And now when you put this carpet tile on, because of the size of the box, two sides it's going to go up a little bit higher. And then the other two sides is going to be a little bit less. And you don't want to overlap that material. So I cut some notches out and then fold the flap up with some hot glue. But none of this you'll see. You're just going to see a little tiny bit of the carpet edge when you're done. This is just so you have a nice finished bottom. So you see I cut the notches out there. You want to be careful. The one side I cut it a little bit too close and I was still able to see the cardboard box through it. So I ended up having to cut like a little tiny piece and glue it in there to hide that open spot. But again, you just want to take that extra hot glue and help hold that carpet tile to the box. And that little open space right there, that's where I filled in with a tiny piece that I had to cut off. It was a little bit too aggressive. So now we're going to take some felt or some extra material we had from the lining of the box. Either or will do. We're just going to cut a few rectangles. And this is going to be to secure our cord to. So we're going to take our cord, we're going to measure about 80 inches and cut that. And then we're going to fold it in half and then glue that folded piece to the felt. And we'll do this 3 times. And just keep gluing each piece next to the one that was there before. And you really want to make sure that they're nice and flat. So we have our first 2 done. We'll add 1 more. So we're gluing 3 pieces down that we folded in half. So we'll end up with 6 strands that are 40 inches long. So it starts out at 80, fold it in half. So now they're 40 inches. Around the box is about 36 inches, but you want that extra few inches because when you twist the cord, it's going to shorten up a little bit. You want to make sure you have enough to get all the way around the box. So I'm just kind of figuring out the placement. I'm trying to decide where exactly I want to glue this down at, how high, how much material I want to show at the top. Once I figure that out, I just put some glue on the felt or the extra material that I glued the macrame cord to, and then we're going to glue it right into that corner. You want to really make sure this is glued down before you start your braid. So wait a few seconds for it to dry, and then we're going to separate this into 3 portions. So there'll be 2 pieces for each one. And we're just doing a very simple braid. If you don't know how to braid, it's very easy. You're just going to take the right side 2 strands, fold it over into the middle. Then take the left side and the right side, just keep alternating back and forth. So I take the right side, the left side, and just keep folding them into the center. So we'll take the right, pull it to the middle, and the left 2, pull those into the middle, then go back to the right, and just keep doing that each time, bringing the end into the middle, alternating sides to create a very simple braid. It's very simple. You're just alternating each side, bringing 2 strands to the center. And then when we get all the way done, down to the end, we'll want to pull on that cord just a little bit to make sure we get all the way to the edge where we first started. And be generous with your glue to glue that end down. Like I said, when you braid it, it is going to get shorter. So I had, a couple inches over. And by the time I get to the end, it was just enough to get to the end where we started. So once we have it all glued down, I cut off the excess. And then you'll notice a little bit of the cord isn't glued down yet because it's overlapping. So you'll want to add a little bit of glue to those pieces. Make sure that that edge is glued down. Now this is going to have a little bit of a raw edge, but we're going to fix this at the end. So again, I'm using my craft stick to push down where the glue's at so I don't burn myself. It is porous. So the glue is going to go through these just a little bit. That glue is hot. I've burned myself many times on a hot glue gun. So that's the first row. And we're going to keep doing the exact same thing until we have the basket covered. Now, as you see here, I'm just adding glue to the basket or the box, and I add it really close to the thread or the rope above it, almost touching it or touching it. That way, when I put the cord on, I can push it up into that cord that's above it, and it'll stick together so we don't have a bunch of open spaces. Now, you're never going to get it completely covered. There's always going to be a little bit of a space just because we're braiding it. But if you take your time and really work towards pushing that rope up into the rope that's above it, by keeping it straight at the same time, is going to eventually cover all those spaces. We cut off the excess and again glue down those strands that are overlapping to make sure that everything's going to stay down. And again, just trim up the edge as best you can, but we're going to cover that when we get to the end. And of course, if you have a cat and thread or yarn or rope, they always love to help. So much fun when they do. Those of you who watch my videos, you guys see my cats are always there when the rope comes out. So now we're going to just measure all the way around the box and then down the side. And then a little bit extra. And this is going to be to cover up that raw edge in the corner and just to fix up the trim a little bit on the bottom of the basket. So again, it's about 40 inches plus a few inches, give or take, depending on what size box you are using. You'll use some felt to glue your rope to. And for this one, we're just going to use 3 strands because we're just trying to hide that raw edge in the corner. So we don't need it real thick. So you just attach your cord to that felt. I'm going to use a clamp to help hold it together while it dries. And then while I do the braid, I figured I could use the clamp to hold it to the top of the basket just to make it easier for me to be able to braid it. And again, you're going to braid this just like you did the last ones to go all the way around the box. You're just taking each side and bringing it to the center, alternating. So you do the left to the middle, the right side, bring it to the middle, and then the left side to the middle, and just keep doing that over and over again. So you create a braid, and then we will glue this into the corner to hide that raw edge where we began and started each row. And that will help to neaten it up a little bit, and this will end up becoming the back of the basket anyways when we're done, so you really won't see it, but you do want to have a nice clean edge for your basket. You don't want it all messy and frayed looking. So I'm just gluing that piece into the corner, and I really make sure I have everything covered before I move on to glue it around the basket. I just go all the way around that bottom edge until I get back to the beginning. And we're gluing it on the same way. We're making sure it's touching that rope above it and sticking to it. So you want to hold it in place until it does. And you can see how little of that carpet tile you can see, but it gives it a nice clean bottom using that carpet tile. You could use fabric as well. The carpet tile I just thought was a nice touch, but really it's optional. You could use that same lining material that you use for the inside of the basket. You can use that for the bottom. I like a little bit more sturdy material on the bottom. So we'll cut off that excess macrame cord and then glue the edge down. Once that's glued in place, you can do a little bit more trim work with the scissors, cutting off any of the frayed rope that wants to stick out. And just make sure it's all glued down really well. It's not going to start popping up. And that is the whole outside of our basket done except for the handles and the tag that we're going to add. So it's really easy. It really doesn't take all that much time. The most time consuming part was actually braiding the cord. So now let's make some handles. We're going to cut some rectangles out of that faux leather rolls you can pick up from Dollar Tree. I think I made them about 8 inches by 3 or 4 inches. And then we're just going to fold it in 3 and glue them down. And these will create the handles. So we've got the handle created. And you can make these as long as you like or as wide as you like. This is what it's going to look like on the basket. So now taking that little tiny screwdriver, we're going to poke holes just by twisting the screwdriver into the faux leather, and it pokes through quite easily. Then I fold it in half and I poke the hole. I just keep going through so that they're in the same spot. So once you get that first hole, just fold your handle in half and follow the same spacing so that you have them in the same spot. Okay, so we've got the handles done. And now we have to attach these to the basket, but first we need to figure out where they're going to go. We want them in the same spot on both sides. So what I do is I take a pencil. Once I figure out where I want the handle to be, I just poke the pencil through the hole that we created and then mark the basket. And then I take that little tiny screwdriver, I poke it through the material, through the box, and then through the material on the other side. But see how I'm like holding it with my hand? That's to make sure I don't pull the material too far off the basket. And the rivet, it's pretty much like a snap. You put one side through and then put the snap on the back until you hear it click. And that secures the handle to the basket. And I'll show a little bit more in depth how to put that on when we do the second project. So now for the tag. I just love this tag. I found them at Dollar General. They have one that says market, one that says welcome, and one that says laundry. And there are 3 different colors. One's like a teal. They have the white one that says welcome, and then this gray one that says market. They're so cute for $1. So I'm just going to mark on the front of the basket. Once I kind of figure out where I want it to be, I'm just going to mark those holes with the pencil really lightly on the cord so I know where the holes will have to be to attach this. And we're going to attach these with the brads. You can also use the brads to attach your handles to the basket. It's really just personal preference. I like the rivets myself, but you can do the brads, of course. So we're just going to push that screwdriver through the cord and through the material, through the basket. I didn't do anything special. I literally just used the screwdriver to do it. It's quite easy. Once you have that done, just line your little plaque back up in the front and then pop the brads through. I thought the brads were a little bit long for this basket. I didn't like how much of it you could see, so I ended up trimming them down a little bit with a pair of scissors. And then I used the brad just like you see here. This was before I trimmed it. And I was thinking these look a little long and I don't like that you can see them. So I ended up trimming them down and then take either the coordinating fabric or some felt and glue it over the ends of the brads like you see I did here. And it really helps disguise those metal pieces so you don't see it through the basket. And that's our first basket done. You guys, it's so easy. I know it looks like it's a really hard in-depth project to do, but it's really not. It's, you know, if you follow just step by step, it's so easy. By the time I was done with the first one, I couldn't wait to make a second one, which you're going to see here in just a second, because I literally could not contain myself. I was so excited. So the supplies for this one are the same. I'm going to show you guys a few additional supplies I used, like these round wood beads from the Dollar Tree. I also needed a piece of sandpaper or a sanding block. I'm going to use 2 different colors of macrame cord for this one. And then I'm going to use 1 paint stirrer stick as a tag like we did with the first one. To put a tag on it, we'll need some needle and thread. And I'm going to use a rub-on transfer for the tag we're going to put on. We're also going to use a razor blade. So let's get crafty making our second basket. We're going to prepare this box, the sides, bottom, as we showed in the first example. Now for this one, we're going to actually use 2 bandanas. And this was a great bandana. I picked them up for 99 cents at Hobby Lobby. And if you fold it in half, it's 10 inches, which is like the perfect size for the height of the basket. And then it was long enough if I cut it in half that if I did that, it will fit all the way around the box to make our lining of the basket. So we've just got our 2 pieces cut into 10 inches. And then we have about, I want to say about 24 inches around. So we're just going to overlap. And because the material is black, the hot glue really wants to show up. You can really see it through the material, especially if you get it pushed down there where the glue's at. It starts to pop through that material, and then when it dries, you can see it. So I wasn't too worried about the outside edge of the basket because we're going to cover that up with the cord. We won't see the glue anyways, but just be mindful of that. If you're using a dark color, when you get to the inside of the basket, use the glue for like the corners, you are going to see it. So you might want to use a different glue alternative to hot glue, or just be mindful and don't add too much hot glue because you're going to see it. So I kind of was a little bit more sparse with this one with the hot glue, but we're doing the lining of the basket. I did the first piece. I tucked the material in the basket, and then I finished wrapping around the outside edge with that second piece of fabric from the bandana. And you can see there's like a little bit of a line where it overlaps, but if you pull it nice and tight, it sits really smooth, and it's got that finished serged edge, so it doesn't fray, which is nice. And then we just tuck that down inside. And again, you're going to want to glue down the corners. Really try to focus the glue on the bottom, so when you put your canvas board that's covered in the material in, it will cover all of the glue marks. So this one, I really made sure that I put most of the hot glue as best I could at the bottom of the lining instead of the corner. And that helped to really disguise that glue that was popping through the material. And you can see, you really can't see any of the glue. And we've got it pretty tight considering we used 2 different pieces of fabric. There's really not that many wrinkles in it. And then we did that carpet square on the bottom just like we did for the first one. Then I'm measuring about how much of the cord I'm going to need to cover. And it was 4 inches. So what I did is I went around the top of the basket. You can see where I'm gluing that cord. There's like a white line kind of shining there. I drew that on so I would make sure that when I glued the cord on, it was at the exact same height all the way around the basket, because we're going to do this one a little bit different. We're not going to braid it all the way around. I'm going to glue these pieces on. They hang over the edge of the basket about 2 inches. So that's how I cut them. I just cut all of them about the same length, and I just keep gluing each one on individually, which actually was a little bit more time consuming than the one that we did the braid. But I really like the way it turned out. I like that we were able to do it a little bit different than the first basket. Now, I do want to point out, when we take the second color that we're going to use, we're going to weave it under and over. And so we divide these pieces that you see right now, the white pieces, we divide them into groups of 3. So you want to make sure each side of the basket is able to be divided by 3. So if you're going to short one, you've only got 2, squeeze an extra one in. It'll help it to all come out even when you're done. That's what I did with the corner. Some of mine didn't glue as close together, and then I had to kind of squeeze an extra one in so that we would be able to divide them into groups of 3. So I just measure my cord all the way around the box like we did with the last box. Again, it's about 80 inches, and you'll want 6 pieces. And this cord's a little bit thinner than the white cord, so it's not going to look as thick when we braid it. But we're doing basically the same thing. We're gluing all of the pieces to a piece of material, except I did not fold these in half this time. So I only cut them about 40 inches long. since we didn't fold them in half. And then I wrap the material around to create kind of like a pocket that the macrame cord sits in. And this helps when we glue it on to disguise it with a nice clean edge so we don't have to clean it up. So we're just creating pretty much like a pocket that the macrame cord sits in. And again, since we didn't fold them, we didn't make them 80 inches, we made them 40 inches because we weren't folding them in half. We do the same thing. We ended up doing 2 rows of black. So you're going to want 2 of these braids. And I clipped it to the top of the basket while I create the braid. And once I've got the braid all the way done, where it will fit all the way around the basket, I start gluing it on. So you can see the first section, I glued it underneath. And we're just going over, under 3 pieces. And you'll see what I mean here in just a second. You just really want to straighten up those cords. The beginning's the hardest part to get started. Once you've got it started, it goes under and on pretty easy. So once I got to about 4 spots in, it was a lot easier. And then I started gluing the rope down. So for the first side, I really glue the beginning down, and then the rope that goes over, those are the ones I'm gluing down to help hold the first part in place. And then when we get to the second side, we're going to again divide the rope into groups of 3. And I'm going to glue a little bit of glue on the box and then pull those strands nice and straight. Make sure they're going straight down and just glue that little bit of the edge down. And then we'll lift the next 3 up out of the way and pull the next 3 down. Add a little tiny bead of glue along that top edge. And then pull them down. You don't want to go too crazy with the glue because when we do our second row, you want to make sure that you can lift the rope again so that it'll fit underneath. So we're just adding a tiny little bit of glue at the top. So we've got the first one's down, and now we're going to pull the black braid across and glue that down, and then start pulling the over strands down as we add glue to hold everything in place. And that helps keep everything nice and straight with us working in lines like this. You see how you have to have enough so you can divide everything in groups of 3. So make sure you're keeping track of how many you're gluing on. So we'll go all the way around the box so we get back to the beginning. And we'll do the exact same thing for the second row, except we're going to do opposite to make it like a checkerboard pattern. So where you did over one time, you're going to do under the next time. And you can see that on the pattern there. And now all we're doing is we're going around the box and giving it a trim. Needs a little bit of a haircut. We have all of those strands glued down right underneath of the black rope. It's all glued down to the box. And then taking like tweezers or a needle, something sharp, a comb even, start separating the bottom edge of these strands to create a little bit of fringe. All we're doing is unbraiding the macrame cord. It creates this really pretty natural looking fringe. And all of your strands at this point should be glued down. If anything starts to lift up, just add a little bit of glue to help hold it down. Once we got that done all the way around the bottom, creating the fringe, I just made a very simple braid using 3 strands. And we're going to glue that onto the top edge to hide that raw frayed edge where we attached all of the strands of the white macrame cord. We're just trying to glue it as close as we can to that top edge. This is initially where we first started, and we're just back to the beginning. So I'm going to glue that knot down and then get back to where we started. gluing the rest of the cord down. And then we'll trim off any excess cord. I have a little bit of overlap, so we'll cut that off. And then we can add a little bit of glue to help tie that little edge down. So this is just as easy as the first box. It's a little bit more time consuming to do a different pattern, but I'm thinking of all the different patterns we could make and just all the endless possibilities to making these baskets. They're really fun to make. So here's what it looks like so far. Again, we're going to make our handles just like we did the last one. Cat's optional. They might need to hop in the box and take a nap. While they're napping, you can work on your handle. And all I'm doing is a simple stitch around the outside edge to give it a little bit of a decorative edge. And I thought it looked really nice with the white and black macrame cord to add some white to the edge of the handle. I thought that would be really pretty, and I really love the way that it turned out. When I was showing people the basket I made, they thought that the handles came that way, and I was like, no, I added the stitching, and they were quite impressed. It's just a very simple stitch. I'm going kind of fast here, but all I'm using is that thread that they sell that's kind of like the baker's twine that Dollar Tree sells. It's like a cotton thread. So then you want to take your mini screwdriver and poke the holes through your handles just like we did the last basket. And then you'll also need to figure out where you're putting your handles on the basket and mark them on either side. And then the rivet. So you're just going to pop the rivet through. And then you've already got the hole in your box. So you're going to push this part through the box. And then take the end and you'll push it on until you feel a snap. They're really easy to put on. And you wouldn't think it would be all that secure, but it actually holds on quite nice. They have some that you have to like hammer on, but these were perfect for this. If you don't have rivets, that's perfectly fine. If you don't want to go buy any, you can again just use the brads that you can pick up pretty much anywhere. They sell them at the grocery store, even in the little section where you can pick up notebooks and envelopes. So that's our first handle, secure. I like the rivets myself. I just think it looks makes them look nice and neat. It's got that nice finished edge. And we'll put the other handle on. And then I wanted to add a tag, pretty much like we did with the first basket, but I didn't have one. So I took a paint stir stick, and all I'm going to do is measure about how long I want it to be. And then I marked it with a pencil and I score it all the way around with the razor blade. And then I slowly wiggle it back and forth until I get it to snap. If it feels like it's not going to go, then you want to make your score marks a little bit deeper. But this wood is a really thin wood for these paint stirrers, so it shouldn't be all that hard to get through the painter stick. So now I'm going to just sand the edge. It's a little bit rough there where we cut through with the razor blade and broke it off. Once we have that sanded down, we're going to take that same little trusty screwdriver, and I'm just going to push it through the wood and keep turning it until, basically like a drill almost, until we get a hole. And we'll do that on both sides so we can attach this to the basket. I didn't have any special tools here, you guys. I literally just used that screwdriver to poke through the wood. It's really thin. It's easy to get through it. So I mark my spots on the basket and I poke the holes through. And then I'm just going to, again, use brads to attach this little label to the basket. Now, I also thought the brads were just too long for this. I did end up cutting them down a little bit, and to hide the brad inside the basket, we used some extra material we had and hot glued the material over the end of the brad. So here's the basket with the label. And then I just chose a few different pieces from the rub-on transfers. And I added that to the basket. I chose Simply Blessed and these really pretty leaves. That's our label there. And then we added some beads to the bottom edge of the basket just to help add that boho. And I really like the wood on the tag, and then the light cream color we did on the handles of the basket I thought was really cute. And so I kind of wanted to blend it all together. I just kind of ties it all together with that natural wood color, that cream color, the tag that we added. You can put the beads on, leave them off. Again, these are just suggestions. When I make these crafts, I expect that you know, if you recreate them, that you'll want to make it your own. But I just want to give these suggestions and some ideas of how you can decorate these baskets. And I just love how these turned out. This is probably my favorite project I've done so far this year. I'm absolutely in love with these. Everyone I show is just amazed that I was able to make this out of a cardboard box and some rope. So easy. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I know it's a little long. I wanted to be very specific with the directions so you guys could follow along. And again, cats are optional. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And here are some other videos from our channel you might also enjoy. Hope you all have a lovely day, and I'll see you next time.